Welcome to Aaron's Harp. My name is Darby and I'll be your bartender. Today, our special is actually a revisit, sorta, but we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Brandy Old Fashioned. All right, the Brandy Old Fashioned. Let's get into that in just a second. First off, I have to say I am terribly sorry about the expansive amount of time between videos right now. Life is pain and we're just getting through it. No, I was sick. I have not been sick like I was for years. And I spent 2 weeks basically just go to work, come home, go to bed. And that was it. That's all I had. So there was a point there for about a week where I barely had a voice and I didn't want to do this and make it terrible and be sniffling and be nasty all over. So anyway, thank you all for please being patient with me while I get back on track once again. But that's how it goes when YouTube isn't your whole career, which I wish it was, let's be honest. Who doesn't want to be a full-time YouTuber? But when YouTube's not your full-time career and you actually have to go to work, some sacrifice needs to be made. But anyway, today we are revisiting the Brandy Old Fashioned. Now, I did a Brandy Old Fashioned several months ago. I did it several months ago when I did a roundup on kind of the big versions of the Old Fashioned. And I didn't care for it, okay? Now, I'll be honest, it was kind of thrown together. It was a last minute addition because I actually added it since I didn't have another ingredient that I wanted to do, but it's neither here nor there. Today, we're going to be visiting and giving all due justice to our Brandy Old Fashioned, also called the Wisconsin Old Fashioned. So for all of my Wisconsin family, this one's for you guys. My mom actually did ask me to revisit this one as well, and I think that it's time to do it. It's cold outside, it's rainy and cold, and to me, this is the perfect kind of weather for a warm drink, and not physically warm, but something that warms your soul, and Brandy does just that. And a hoodie and shorts, because I'm in shorts because I live in Florida, all right? So that's just the way it's going to be. But this is an interesting one. I went through a bunch of different sources and talked to people and did a bunch of research to try and figure out what the most accurate representation of this should be, not what my interpretation of it should be, and I think I've got it. So, without further ado, let's jump into our ingredients. You're going to need a brandy, as always. I tried a few different brandies recently, and I haven't liked any of them as much as I have liked this $29 bottle of Ciroc, very special French brandy. This is cheap. You can get it everywhere. I bought this bottle at Walmart, at the Walmart liquor store that we have here in town. And I tell you what, out of probably the vast majority that I've tried, this is my preference. Now, cognac or brandy, I don't know that there's a whole ton of difference, maybe where it's made and aged, how long it's aged for, things like that. But this specifically calls for brandy, so brandy is what we will use. You're going to need, in my little guy right here, I've got a sugar cube, all right? This is the 21st century. 9 out of 10 times you're gonna see me use simple syrup. But every single recipe, every one of them, every single recipe I found for this cocktail uses a sugar cube. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So sugar cube it is. You're also going to need classic Angostura bitters. These are kind of a Midwest thing too. So do some research on the Angostura company. It's very, very interesting. And Wisconsin, you rebels, you found a way to get around prohibition with Angostura bitters. So, other than that, you will need an orange, which, if you're not using orange in your old fashioned, at least a peel of orange, nice big swath of orange, probably doing it wrong. So, grab an orange. And some cherries. Now, this is where I'm deviating a little bit, right? Don't roll away from me, buddy. Normally, 90% of the cherries that I saw used were the bright red, like cocktail cherries. You know what I'm talking about? Like the kind that you put on top of a sundae. I can't do it. I even have some in my refrigerator right here in the bar. I have some. And they are so overbearingly sweet, I just can't palate it. I used to love them when I was a kid. Not so much anymore. So I'm using these Woodford Reserve bourbon cherries. These are delicious. They're a little pricey. I tend to prefer my Luxardos, but I couldn't find those, and I could find these. So we're gonna go with these. A brandy cherry, those terrible red ones, something like this. You're gonna need some cherries, okay? And now, the most controversial part of this for me, lemon lime soda, or soda water, or something of that nature. Most everywhere I saw it used 7-Up. I don't know if that's right or not. I could not confirm that, but 7-Up's what I've got because my dad likes 7 and 7s, so use 7-Up. But, yeah, I have a hard time with it, all right? I have a hard time with it. But let's go ahead and start making this guy. I'm gonna make this directly in the glass because it does require some muddling. So, a couple of the things you'll need is a good glass with a heavy bottom, okay? These glasses have a super thick base on them. It's heavy, it keeps them upright, which is very good, but it also allows me, when I muddle, right, using your muddler, to crush down on it without fear of shattering the bottom of my glass. I would not try to do that, even though I love these glasses. I absolutely adore these. My wife got them. They're very thin on the bottom. I would not muddle directly into this glass because I'll probably break it. Now, let's talk about muddling for just a second, all right? You don't need a fancy muddler, you know, just something clean and sterile that you could, or well, at least clean, that you can put into your glass and crush up your ingredients, whether it be fruit or mint or rosemary or whatever else you're using in your cocktails. I have one of these fancy little muddlers. It's got these aggressive little teeth on it. I like these teeth because you don't need to be as hardcore about getting in there and really grinding on things with something like this. Now, talking about hardcore grinding on things down in the bottom of your glass, you do not need to like get in. I'm a pretty big dude, right? I don't need to be in there crushing down on this. Release the oils, release a little bit of the juice, and move on with your life. It is not, you don't have to grind it into a pulp, okay? So you will need a muddler. You will also need a knife and a cutting board. I mean, unless you want to cut right on your counter, whatever, it's your counter, I guess. But let's go ahead. Here's a little trick, right? If you're gonna serve something with orange in it, as well as a peel of orange, and you only have, like me, for whatever reason, I only have one orange left, go ahead and pull your peel first, right? Go ahead and get that big swath of orange first. Boom, just like that, and set it off to the side. It's not going anywhere, all right? Now, let's go ahead and I'm gonna cut about 3 decent wheels off of this orange. Be careful using a knife. I know that we're all adults here, right? But be careful using a knife. Don't cut your fingers. I have done it many times. I'm gonna keep one of these wheels off to the side for part of my garnish. And then I'm gonna take one of these, let's do 1.5. So I'm gonna set those off on my cutting board for the time being because we will be using those in the cocktail. Now this is one of those things that I personally despise when it comes to almost any cocktail, especially old fashions, is putting fruit in my glass. That shouldn't be a thing. That was a thing in the 70s and it's dead and gone. But for this, everywhere I looked, that's how it was done, so that's how we're doing it. Take your sugar cube, drop it in your glass, get your Angostura bitters, 3 to 4 big dashes on a regular dasher, If you're using the little Japanese style dasher bottles, which eventually I'll have, you should do about 6, okay? But let's go ahead and you want to kind of soak down your sugar cube. Now, let's go ahead and drop a couple of these in here. So here's the thing, right? We need to crush up and dissolve our sugar cube. Sugar does not dissolve in alcohol, right? So our brandy won't really dissolve it. So we need to do some of this heavy lifting before we even start making our cocktail, right? So let's pull out a couple of these guys. Now these ones still have their stems on it, and that's okay. I personally, we're gonna grab one more of those guys out of there if I can get it. I personally will remove the stems. You don't need to, but for simplicity and eating enjoyment or drinking enjoyment, I would remove the stems, okay? Except if you want to keep one for a garnish. So we've got a bunch of stuff in our glass now. Let's go ahead. Well, I'll leave it up here so y'all can see what I'm doing. We're gonna go ahead and kind of give our fruit a quick muddle, and then we want to kind of get into that sugar cube, and that's it. That's all the muddling we're gonna do. Now, what I am gonna do here is I'm gonna take my spoon and I'm going to give this. There's a whole bunch. I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but there's a whole bunch of juice at the bottom of that, right? Came out of our cherries and our Angostura bitters and our oranges. I'm gonna use that to kind of get some of that sugary sweetness up, okay? So 1 sugar cube, give it a quick stir, kind of dissolve everything down. Here we go. Two ounces of our brandy of choice, or cognac if that's what you're using. Let's grab an ice cube. And we're gonna have to kind of scooch our little flavor enhancers around a little bit so we can fit our ice cube. I've got these giant ice cubes. Absolutely, if you don't have these big ice cubes, or if you do, go ahead and give them a little crack so they break down a little easier. But now we're gonna go ahead and give this a good stir, kind of chill everything down, dilute everything. All right, and that, ladies and gentlemen, without our topper, is the Brandy Old Fashioned. Now, word on the street is, top this up with a lemon lime soda. So, our 7-Up goes in. It's not very much. Obviously, we've got a big ice cube in there. We've got a decent volume of liquid already in there. We're going to, because I can't help myself, that is the largest orange wheel I've ever seen in my life. And now, because this does have a bunch of fruit and stuff in it, normally I wouldn't serve my Old Fashions with a straw, but because there is fruit and stuff in here, I will put one in there, if nothing else, than to just give a stir, right? So you can give a stir. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The Brandy Old Fashioned, the Wisconsin Classic. Let's go ahead and give this guy a try. Let's take you off of there, buddy. Okay, so this is interesting. The smell is much more citrus than I expected. It's sweet. It has a sweet nose, which partially is from the amount of sugar in this, but is also partially from our brandy, right? Brandy has kind of a sweet flavor. Okay. Wow. The evolution is a lot longer than I would expect as well. The lemon lime soda is absolutely background noise, right? It gives it a little bit of bubbles and a little sparkle in the back of your mouth, but the fruitiness of your brandy comes right through. Plus the addition of citrus and cherries in our sugar also comes right through. It's uniquely interesting. It is absolutely something I could see coming out of the Midwest. It's sparkly and it's just a little sweet, but not like, it's cloyingly sweet, right? Like it just plays at being too sweet, but it's absolutely a perfect like dessert nightcap, like sit in front of the wood-burning stove kind of thing, or, sit and watch, maybe it's late night, kids have gone to bed, and the last 15 minutes, that last quarter of football's on, and you and the boys are all hanging out, and you want something just a little sweet, but nobody really wants to like break out the blender and make shakes. Nobody really wants ice cream, but everybody is already kind of a little hammered. Brandy's sweet. The fruit tapers that sweetness off. Then the sugar comes in at the very end. And then our 7-Up, our lemon lime soda kind of gives everything a little bit of bubble, a little bit of life, and a little bit of body. Right? That's the thing about this, right? So normally when I drink an old fashioned, my old fashioned, somebody else's old fashioned, going out to eat old fashioned, they're fast evolutions, right? Unless you've got a really complex whiskey in there. Or they're thin, right? They don't have a lot of body. They have a lot of oomph, right? Because it's typically 100 proof whiskey or 100 proof rye, something in that strain. But they don't hang around for a long time. This hangs around. This like fills your cheeks. Like it gives me that squirrel sensation, right? Like my cheeks are full. It's warm. It's fuzzy. It's like a nice pair of slippers or some fuzzy socks or a nice big blanket, right? A newfound respect for the Brandy Old Fashioned. Personally, would I put the fruit in it? No, I wouldn't. Would I serve it with the fruit? Absolutely I would. I would absolutely throw a couple cherries in there. I would absolutely put a couple slices right on the side, as a garnish that you could drop into the cocktail. Because I think that would add the sweetness and that citrus note that you're looking for in this without being overbearing, without being overly, let's be honest. I don't like stuff in my drink, right? I just want the cocktail. But I think for something like this, it works. This is absolutely like a dessert in a glass kind of thing. And quite frankly, I have to admit, I love it, right? It's not something I would drink every day, but I absolutely love it for an evening drink, hanging out with the boys kind of drink, especially if I were in the snow, right? And I live in Florida, so there's no snow here. But man, isn't that a fun experience to look at something with a broad mind, right? A little bit different perspective on this one coming in. I wanted to try this and give it a fair shake, and I think that this is about as fair a shake as any. So thank you all so much. I appreciate every single one of you for hanging out. I know that it gets crazy with me in and out, and uploads are not as regular as they should be. I'm going to try and get better about making sure that my uploads are on time. But really, what is time? So anyway, thank you all so very much for hanging out. Please do like, share, comment, subscribe. Let me know that this is working for you. If there's a cocktail you'd like one of these, or you'd like me to check out, please do leave it in the comments. Shoot me a message. You can get a hold of me a bunch of different ways. Most of you probably know how by now. But anyway, thank you all so much. Remember, don't drink and drive. Drink responsibly, especially if it's raining out. Please be careful out there, and tip your bartenders. And until then, we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.